Welcome to the Bastard Collection, Volume 1. This show contains expressions and themes which may be considered outdated by some. I'm Jim Vulture, and this is my co-host, Night Fox, and we're going to give you guys a little primer on the Master Collection, Volume 1, which will release tomorrow by the time you listen to this.
Yeah, tomorrow, same day, who knows?
Yeah, so this isn't a Snake Pit episode.
Okay, so we've got a resolution and frame rate that we know pretty sure. I think people have this game in their hands, some people. It's based off the PS3 version. They didn't really do much work on it. Like, they upgraded the PS3 version, which was 720p to 1080p. So, you know, it's whatever. We'll see what it actually looks like on our PS4s and PS5s. But on the Switch, they only get 720p, and MGS1 is only at 30 frames a second on modern consoles as well. Hopefully when we upload this, I'll be showing you guys what a 10-year-old PC can push when it comes to MGS1, and the fact that they can put in the work to re-release this 1998 game in at least 60 frames or something. It's not like it's impossible. These guys have a lot of backing.
Right.
It's almost like, I don't want to say cash grab, but that's what it feels like from the little information we know just on the resolution and frame rate, right?
Yeah, that's kind of what it feels like. Again, this is yet to be seen. There's only a couple people with like advanced copies of the game so far.
Right.
And it seems like it's a pretty mixed bag. It seems like some people are saying it's similar to what you would get out of, say, having the old console hooked up to a modern TV with an adapter. It's kind of a travesty that this is the Master Collection of Metal Gear Solid, and they couldn't take the time to upscale everything properly or convert it properly.
It almost feels like a lazy slap in the face in a way, you know. I mean, we will see when we get our hands on it. Maybe it looks really good upscale, but I mean, we're talking about games that released in, you know, early 2000, 2004, 2005, and 2001, 2000, 1998. This is not really pushing any system, you know, to its knees right now. These are really old PS1 and PS2 games.
Right.
And I can understand some people do argue the fact that it's like almost like it's a better way to conserve it being that way. But to me, that's like you're giving them an excuse for not putting work in on it and asking for all this money for this game. But we will see. We will see how it looks. To be fair, right? When you play a lot of those older games on your HD TVs, they look pretty good because it has a great art style already, you know? So it's almost like you can't even tell a lot of times. So we will see.
It may not even matter. It may not even matter when you're, you know, in the shit. You might not care. You know, if you're in the middle of the end battle and, you know, you're running around the jungle, you're probably not going to care that much, right?
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's like, it feels like maybe it could have been a little bit more polished.
Well, that's because we've been exposed to like other games, other PS1 type games getting re-releases, and they clean them up. I think Final Fantasy VII had one. Just recently, Tomb Raider announced that they're doing a PS1 kind of conversion where they have you can play in the default PS1 graphics, but you can press a button. They do their best to make that PS1 game almost like a high-end PS, like a more... Remember how PC games used to look compared to like PS1 games?
Yeah.
So it looks like a much nicer, cleaner, better model like a PS1 game. It plays the same. Nothing's changed. The whole level is the same. Tomb Raider is classic to a lot of people, but I feel like Metal Gear Solid is much more classic. And it's a game that deserved that sort of treatment than what we're getting right now for it.
Absolutely, man. I couldn't agree more. And the fact that they're going to sell on these stores, the digital copy is going to sell for $20 a piece. That's $20 for MGS1. Yeah. But it's still $20 for a game that came out in the late 90s. True. That kind of feels like a hard sell to me.
And the worst part about it is there's no real discernible update to it besides whatever system they're using. But I don't know. Yeah. We'll see what that is. The other problem we do have with this the supposed update to the Master Collection is there's no pressure sensitive buttons anymore. If you're a Sony fan that grew up with those things, it's more of an issue. I know
It's muscle
Xbox had
memory.
this workaround. Yeah, it's muscle memory.
It is.
Probably has a very similar control scheme to the Xbox 360 version, which I think you press.
Yeah.
So when you aim your gun, if you press like the left stick in or something, I think it unequips it or it lowers the gun. So that's how you're going to be
Yeah.
doing that instead of like taking your finger slowly off of it.
It seems like there's more machinations you have to go through
Yeah.
with these HD versions of the games, unfortunately, than you
Yeah.
do on the again.
Yeah.
Why is this a problem? We're at PS5. This game came
Yeah.
out on PS1, PS2. Why is this a
Yeah.
problem?
Because nobody wants to have pressure sensitive buttons anymore. But to be fair, they can find workarounds for this. Usually the triggers in all these controllers are still pressure sensitive. They could have figured out something out with a different
Yeah.
control scheme. But purist wise, it's good that a lot of buttons are in the same place.
As far as controls go, I've heard that the PS5 version of the Master Collection has haptic feedback for the games now. I don't know if that's like in lieu of pressure sensitivity, or I don't even feel like that really makes up for it. Haptic feedback's great. I mean, it's a very subtle thing that can enhance the game experience.
Right.
But pressure sensitivity allows for a finesse in those games that isn't possible anymore, which is a shame, because I feel like that's something that you really had to play a lot of that game to get good at it. Especially I've been still replaying MGS3 lately on the PS2 with pressure sensitivity, and you really got to be good about it, especially taking hostages. Like that's a big thing in my mind. Like when I'm approaching a situation in those games, I have to think about, all right, I've got to make sure I don't fuck this up, right? If I fuck it up, then the alert goes off, and then I'm screwed.
Yeah. You know, from the looks of it, maybe owning the original is still not the bad. Don't put your originals away just yet, you know?
Do not sell your original games. If you're out there and you've got the complete series, I've got all mine. Do not ever get rid of that stuff, because it's only going to get harder for you to get physical media going forward in the future.
Definitely.
Case in point, the PS4 version of this game is going to be digital only.
True. It's just going to be a straight digital only version, which kind of sucks. But if you have the physical copies of the original, you're not really missing too much, you know, sadly. And there's already changes to this version, so it's not really the purest version of what you're getting.
Yeah. There are some changes, and we're going to discuss them now, but there are some changes, and there are some things missing too.
Like, I wonder. Actually, someone who's very important is missing.
Yeah, someone who's very important is missing. Apparently, the buzz online is that Kojima isn't credited in the Master Collection. Now, he's credited in each game's credits, but he's not credited in the overall credits for the game, which seems like it could be an oversight, but it also seems like it could be a slight.
I think it's a slight. I think Konami wasn't going to put as much time into updating these games, so they're not going to go deep in the codes to remove those, like Kojima and stuff, right? So they find it probably much more easier to, at the start of it, to sort of kind of be petty and just be like, you know what, thanks to all the series staff, the original series staff and fans, the Metal Gear series staff and fans.
That's us.
Without exactly without exactly saying the dude's name, you know, the guy that you're making all your money off of.
So the historical footage, they removed some of it, but apparently it's like superfluous footage. It's not anything that would break the game or misrepresent any of the cutscenes or anything. Apparently it was like a trademark issue. So there is some cutscenes that are going to be different from the original releases, but it seems pretty innocuous overall. It's not like they're changing the cutscene to, like, you know, represent Russia in a different way or something like that in MGS3, right?
I think this is their defense, right? They said money was not an option. This is what they said. Money was not an option, but the people that had original copyright that they paid for, when they went back there, those people, they don't exist anymore. And rather than like being like a legal like loophole for the next time when someone picks up those rights, they decide to just go with someone else and keep it safe. That's
That makes
their
sense.
excuse. Yeah, and it's very like innocuous things too. Like what was it, beakers? The guys with the beakers in MGS1 and stuff walking around, and
Yeah, it
maybe
was like
some of the
stock footage.
yeah. From the sounds of it, it's not going to be like RE4's VR. They removed some cutscenes that were problematic. Different issues. We won't get into that right now. But from the sounds of it, all the cutscenes are intact except for the copyrighted footage.
Right. Now, in addition to this superfluous footage that has been changed or removed or whatever, this version of these Metal Gear games is missing a few things. MGS3, no Guy Savage. Subsistence, no skateboard game. And no Ape Escape. So those 3 mini games are missing from this version.
I didn't even consider those things because those were based on the true original versions of those games. And even the PS3 versions didn't have those options, to play any of those things.
No, they didn't.
But I guess that means one codec conversation is definitely going to be missing from the game, and that's with Paramedic, right? When you guys talk about vampires. You talk about the original Dracula movie, don't you? With Paramedic?
Yeah.
It's been so long since I heard that conversation.
There's a whole conversation about 1934's Dracula with Bela Lugosi and Naked Snake. Big Boss says that he's afraid of vampires. He doesn't like vampires. So I don't know. It would be interesting if they keep that. I mean, they could keep that without the like nightmare connotations around the rest of the. They would have to edit the codec conversation, but I think they could probably keep that. I don't know why it would get triggered though, because it only gets triggered when you're in the jail cell.
To be fair, right? Konami owns Castlevania. They didn't have to put a piece of Castlevania game in there, but they could have put like a little 10-second trailer of someone fighting a vampire or something and just put that in there. But it's like too much work for them to do, to go in there.
Exactly. That's the thing. This is what we were talking about. The fact that they didn't do that when it's the obvious, take one of your other games and put it in there. It's a real double-edged sword because it's going to be amazing for new fans, people that don't have access to the old systems, that don't want to pay the exorbitant prices for the old games, who just weren't fortunate enough to grow up in that time period and play those games when they came out and have them. They're going to have all the games in one place, which is amazing. It's going to bring new fans to the series. It's going to bring new fans to MetalGearLegacy.com. It's a good thing. I think it's an overall good thing, but the fact that they're calling it the Master Collection. Like, this is it. This is the definitive collection, and it just makes me feel like they could have done a little bit more. There's some missing stuff. I mean, sure, there's quality of life updates throughout for the various titles included. Is it enough, though? For $60? $20 an individual game? I don't know, man.
So my personal feelings on this is, like you said before, the greatest thing about this is that for potential newer fans or people who just don't have a PC or they're not into emulation, but they've always heard about this, because honestly, there's a lot of memes and stuff that recently came out that's concerning stuff in Metal Gear, like the Metal Gear alert noise. You hear that in a lot of people's memes and shit now too.
Yeah. It's part of pop culture. It's in the zeitgeist, and people probably don't know where it comes from.
Yeah, but like we said before, it's great for new fans or people who sadly maybe at a time they weren't interested in Metal Gear, or they just were too young, or maybe some of them weren't even born, right? 98 was the first Metal Gear Solid, so this is the best option they got, and I can't fault them for picking up this version legally, because some people they're wrapped up with the whole legality thing too. They want to have a legal version of it and not do emulators. The only thing is you're not supporting Kojima anymore. You're supporting Konami.
Yeah,
and that's what's going on.
That's a big problem.
Yeah.
This is, when it boils down to it, this is Hideo Kojima's brainchild.
Right. Right.
All of this wouldn't exist without him.
True.
This podcast, our website, the series, the fandom at large, none of this would be here without Kojima.
Definitely.
And again, I can't help but think that if Kojima were still at Konami, or he had some say in this, even as an advisor or something, it would just be that little bit better that this community deserves, and new fans deserve to have that thing that Kojima brings to games, you know. True. And this feels devoid of that. It almost feels soulless in a way, unfortunately.
Imagine when you start remaking Tarantino movies without Tarantino, there are Scorsese movies without Scorsese. What that's gonna feel like?
It's coming, dude. It's coming. Man, that's a scary thought.
It is scary, but I appreciate that new people or people who missed out before and owning it they have an option, and hopefully it introduces them to later down the line trying to acquire these things. Collecting classic games now is really expensive, and I understand why someone would just buy this.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I understand too. I can't fault anybody for buying it, but I can't say that I would recommend it to anyone.
Yeah.
And I realize my bias. I have all the systems and all the games in their, original form. And not everybody's that fortunate to have acquired that over time. And it wasn't like I sought it out to collect it later on. Like, it was just stuff that I acquired like through my childhood. So this is a great way for new fans to get into the series, though. All right. Well, I'm excited to converse with all the new fans this is going to bring. As always, you can find us at MetalGearLegacy.com. I hope that you found this interesting. If you want to hear more, we have a full-length podcast called The Snake Pit. You can find it on Podbean, and soon it'll be on Spotify. It's on YouTube, and of course, you can find it at MetalGearLegacy.com. So thanks for listening, guys. I think that'll do it for us.
See you next time.
Later on.